What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Meadows and Makers podcast here on MSP Waves. Welcome to the program tonight. I have a few things lined up for you guys. Kind of going to talk to you guys a little bit about what I've been up to over the weekend. Little other updates. Here is that YouTube gave me my first strike. So, so what I'm gonna do is I am streaming on YouTube, but I am also streaming to Odyssey, and hopefully that is working. I don't know how to get in there. Let's see. See if I can copy that link. Also streaming on Odyssey. See right there. So let's see if I can find that. No content found. So, what the hell, dude? What the hell, bro? Come on now. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can we do this? Can we go live here? If you're having trouble starting a stream, so you're live, but you aren't, try a reset. Aha! Did it go live? It went live. Thank God. Thank God in heaven. Alright, guys. I'm out there. We out there on Odyssey. So come check out the podcast. Let's see. Let me do this. Let me do a couple things here. Let me tweet this out that I'm live. Let's see. Just went live. Over at mspwaves.com and on Odyssey here. Maybe on YouTube. YouTube. Just got my first strike on YouTube. So go. Sure. But you can also watch there, which is this link, maybe somewhere. Here's the link. You can also watch here. So, guys, hope everybody is having a good week out there. Everybody had a good Thanksgiving holiday. It's been a little while since I talked to everybody. But we are in the middle of a crazy downpour right now. And it's becoming really hard for me to hear myself right now. But anyway, welcome to the show. This is the Meadows and Makers podcast. And what I try to do on this podcast is try to give you guys solutions as the world starts to spiral down and out of control. You know, what are some things that you can do to put yourself in a better situation, and try to bring you guys solutions for how to do that. So today I wanted to present you guys with some things that we can all do. And recently kind of learning a little bit about sugarcane and rum. And this is probably a new hobby of mine, is to get into some rum production. And so I'm looking into that. I just bought some sugar cane off of somebody on Etsy, and I plan on planting that this season so that I can give a shot at producing my own rum. But yeah, apparently rum is derived from molasses, and so molasses is a basically when you boil down sugar cane, you gotta like grind up the sugar cane and kind of get the juice out of it. And once you get that sugar cane juice, then you can go and boil it, and then you grab what you boiled, which is during that boiling process, it boils down into molasses. So that's what I want to start experimenting with a little bit on the side, is doing some home distillation. And we've got some of the equipment to do that. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So recently, it looks like YouTube hit me for a strike on one of my videos. I'm kind of not surprised, because I haven't really been trying to avoid one or anything like that. But since it was my first strike, I guess I'm okay. On one of the videos, one of the past videos I posted, I haven't had time to go look at it yet, but yeah, as soon as I popped up in YouTube, it just was like it was like, hey man, you got a strike. So anyway, I kind of feel good about that. First time I've gotten a strike on YouTube. So I wear it as a badge of honor. So anyway, if you want to watch the show, that you can always come hang out in the Discord here in the the Peace, Abundance, Liberty Discord, which you can find by going to mspwaves.com/watch. And then since YouTube sucks, go watch me on Odyssey. I've got the stream going live on Odyssey if you'd like to watch there. I'd prefer that to start building up the audience over on Odyssey. And then I am also live streaming to YouTube, but YouTube is a little bastard. So anyway, that's where I'm at tonight, and I hope everybody's doing well out there. Gabriel, I see you just joined in the in the Discord chat. So what's up, man? How have you been? I hope you are doing well over there in Australia. And it looks like we're continuing the downward spiral of society as things continue to deteriorate society wise. There's crazy stuff going on all over the place. Um, one of the, it's I just caught a tweet from somebody that I follow on Twitter. She came on the podcast. Duality of Han put out a tweet today talking about how it's kind of everything's kind of getting to her with this as far as like the world goes, everything that's going on in the media, all the she's got to deal with crap from her family and all this kind of stuff. And you know what? I think really the agenda here with everything that is going on is just to, degrade humanity, as much as possible, and to give you a sense of hopelessness. And that's kind of part of this whole system is to try to put you in a state of hopelessness. But just that's one thing that I responded was that I understand that because I can feel that I can feel that going through a lot of the information and stuff. You kind of get it can be overwhelming, but I think you really have to stay optimistic because as this whole thing spirals down, like I've described in the past on the podcast, is like we have an opportunity to do the spiral upward and to work on ourselves and becoming more resilient, less dependent, and as we're doing that, as we wean ourselves off the system, we spiral upward. And so that's the thing to be optimistic about. And don't let them put you, don't let this society and this whole system put you in that state of hopelessness. I mean, I've been there. And it is a struggle. It's a daily struggle, and you don't want to be ignorant of what it is going on and how you can move around these things. But don't let it overwhelm you, I think, is a good mentality. Awesome, dude. You got a job interview tomorrow. What kind of job are you going after? I hope I hope it's a job that you're going to enjoy and something that brings you some at least it's going to pay your bills and be something that's you're going to not hate is what I hope that's going on. You were doing some stuff I thought with like maybe like aerial photography or something like that. So yeah, you just need lots of money. Yeah. Are you planning on staying in Australia, Gabriel? Is that something that you would, if presented an opportunity, would you want to get out of Australia, like to go somewhere else? Or are you kind of set and staying there? If you get some money, you would leave. Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that I think about too is like, I've kind of heard both sides of the story, where, maybe one part is, you're like, say if you were gonna leave for like Mexico or something like that, like you're always going to be seen as like the gringo. And you're always going to stick out, and people are always going to kind of want to, think that you have some money or whatever, and you're always going to have to haggle with people and stuff. In other countries like Mexico or South America or whatever, but yeah, if you like move to the U.S., but not saying the U.S. is any better. Maybe a little bit less tyrannical than Australia at the moment. Um, but it's just gonna get crazy. I think the further we go. But that's the question. Is like you gotta write it out where you're at. You know people there. You can build like a community of people around you. Um, that you're used to the culture, you're used to the terrain, you're used to all those things, and yeah, if you're outside of the cities, it's probably better than being in the cities and getting locked up in there. So yeah, I guess it's kind of some things to think about. When I think about it, I feel like having those advantages is I think there are more pros to having those advantages than to try to set up shop in another country. However, you know, if things go the route of China and what they've got going on in China, I mean, I don't know. Um, you want to stay and move more country style, yeah. Go rural, be able to link up with tons of farmers. Majority of your clients in your old job were farmers and rural businesses. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it'd be cool if you made a lot of connections to those guys and all those farmers and everything like that. Um, because that's what I think the folks that see the agenda, and if they are rural and they are doing some kind of homesteading, farming, um, and they're seeing all this stuff come down the pipeline. Those guys are going to be the ones that are going to have the resources, going to have the capabilities to start some kind of communities and uh, things like that. I was listening to a good talk with Owen Benjamin and Curtis Stone today, where they were talking a lot about that. Just what I mentioned, as everything kind of spirals downward, there's the equal opportunity to create an equal and opposite reaction of the spiral upward and toward higher states of yourself and spiritual, becoming more spiritual, becoming more centered as a person, removing your traumas, becoming the best version of yourself, you know, defeating some of the shadows in your own psychological makeup, and being a light for others in the world when the world becomes in society looks so bleak and dark. So um, I think that's the opportunity that is before us. For some reason, I've always been kind of like a hopelessly optimistic person. However, I have gone down into some pretty deep depressions just because life will kick you in the balls. Uh, Sometimes when you think everything's going good and God, the universe, life will come out of the blue and smack you back into place and tell you that you've got more lessons to learn, and you know, that's not the end of your growth as a person. So I've come to view things that way is that it's lessons that I have to learn in my life, and some tragedies. How can you justify some kind of tragedy that happens in your life that how could you justify that as a lesson? But I really do think you know that we are presented with lessons to learn, to grow as a spiritual being, to leave a mark in this realm, toward the elevation of consciousness of humanity. I believe um, I'm kind of borrowing that from the the whole talk with Owen Benjamin and Curtis, but I, I I vibe with that, man. I really do. I vibe with that idea that we're here to learn and grow and to be a part of elevating the consciousness of this whole of humanity, this our species, our the complexity of the universe. I think is ever increasing complexity, and one of those trippy kind of ideas. Man, I was really thinking about some of these things the other day. I wish I had written all this down, but the idea of like nested, kind of like nested universes. Like if you're on a different vibration, or at since everything in this universe is in motion, everything has a particular vibration, um, which is I think what Nikola Tesla was trying to tell everyone, and it was one of those things where that guy was like so way ahead of his time in understanding how this physical reality works, uh, from his own experiments, and I guess being curious and being probably more connected to God, more connected to the universe. I think that he his intentions were to uplift humanity, and I think he had a lot of noble intentions, and because of that, maybe he received some downloads from the creator of this whole reality, and how I see that. Um, there's lots of interesting ideas when you go into some of these works, like Billy Carson is a guy that I started to follow because I remember watching some of his stuff on, I guess it was on Ancient Aliens, and that's where I kind of like first caught an idea of who he was. And he wrote a book called the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, which were supposedly these tablets that were written by Hermes Trismegistus is something he was called, like the Hermetic Principles, if you've ever heard of that. uh, Hermes Trismegistus. I think Trismegistus means thrice born, and he talks about some of the stuff that is mentioned in these emerald tablets. It seems like poetry when you're reading it, or it's confusing language. Some of the things that are described in these emerald tablets, and another thing is like supposedly these tablets exist somewhere, um, and one of the early translations of it from is, I believe, from a guy named Dorial. That is supposedly, that translation can be found in one of the museums. Um, but anyway, in the Emerald Tablets, it talks about how, or it, Thoth is describing in the Emerald Tablets the ability to like regenerate the body and take on either a transfer of consciousness to another biological life form. So it kind of like resets the clock, and you're able to kind of like able to stretch your years out into another body. So things like that are described. Billy Carson talks about how this may be an ancient technology. Maybe Thoth was an Atlantean, a carryover from a previous human civilization that was able to survive the cataclysmic events that happened on the planet, and also carried some of the technology with the person. Uh, Doriel. Let me see if I can find the translated by Michael Doriel, which I think is maybe the original, the guy that originally translated these things. So, there is a book, I guess, from Michael Doriel. But one of the other, let me tie this in with what I'm talking about. I'm trying to tie it into what I was mentioning there with the downloads from the universe and where that might come from, and how this reality is explained. There's all of a sudden there was a big bang, and then there's an expansion of the universe. And in this book, Billy Carson talks about how this reality looks like it appears to be like a holographic projection from potentially another plane of existence, where he relates the idea that in a hologram you can have certain parts of the hologram can represent the entire image of what the hologram is projecting. So this is part of the thing that he describes in the Emerald Tablets, or his compendium of the Emerald Tablets. Yes, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean, supposedly he's the Atlantean, also known as Hermes. Can also be known as Hermes Trismegistus. So, I don't know. It seems like it could potentially be a possibility. The only reason that the folks that are observing the universe are saying that everything's in this state of expansion. So the way that we can tell that is because of this red shift that happens. Let me see if I can. Let me set this up. I'm gonna have to set up my properties here, and we're gonna have to go to home. We're gonna have to go to here. We're gonna have to turn that on. All right. So, I just kind of lost my train of thought there. So, talking about holographic projection into this reality, and how it looks like this reality is set up as like a from what we're observing from the red shift and all this kind of stuff. That's where we were at, red shift. I just wanted to look up, an explanation of this red shift thing, and how they're talking about how we see everything expanding in the universe, from what we're observing with this happening. So in physics, the red shift is an increase in the wavelength and corresponding decrease in the frequency and photon energy of electromagnetic radiation such as light. The opposite change, a decrease in wavelength and simultaneous increase in frequency and energy, is known as a negative redshift or blue shift. The terms derive from the colors red and blue, which form the extremes of the visible light spectrum. In astronomy and cosmology, the three main causes of electromagnetic redshift are: 1. Radiation travels between objects which are moving apart. Relativistic redshift, an example of the relativistic Doppler effect. 2. The radiation travels towards an object in a weaker gravitational potential, an example towards an object in less strongly curved, flatter space-time, gravitational redshift. And 3. Radiation travels through the expanding space, cosmological redshift. The observation that all sufficiently distant light sources show redshift corresponding to their distance from Earth is known as Hubble's law. So anyway, I say this just to say, like allegedly, this is the whole kind of coming back. The scientific explanation is that, through random occurrence, there was this Big Bang event, and the whole universe is expanding from that, from the origination of a single point of all matter in the universe, and we're all shifting apart and reaching entropy where everything dies a cold death, because it all tends to disorder and all fall apart. That's the explanation, that we get from kind of mainstream science and the view of how all that works and everything. But I have some alternative theories. It's like, where did all this matter? Where did all this energy? Where did it all come from? It's like you kind of think about that kind of stuff, and then you start coming up with different ideas on that, trying to figure out how this is all set up and how everything works, and observing throughout your lifetime different things that have happened in your own life, and serendipity and things that are kind of hard to explain, at least that have happened in my own life. But it just makes me think it's kind of an interesting concept to think about, is this whole idea of a possibility that there's a higher realm of existence, and this is only part of a whole journey of existence, and this is just one realm of it. So it kind of gives you that idea, and in order for there's got to be some kind of a constructor to this reality, is where I'm trying to get at. And you can, if you look at it through this holographic projection type lens, then there's that component of it, which is pretty hopeful from my perspective. Is that it's like, this is only one piece of the existence. There's potentially infinite different realms of existence. From what I think, from pondering this for a while, it could also be some of the reasons that we see the whole redshift phenomenon is that we're in this giant toroid kind of thing, where there was this expansion from some kind of central point, and now we're like seeing this red shift of an expansion, and possibly at a certain point in the torus, like the outer point of a torus. And let me share what I'm trying to, a picture of what I'm talking about here, of a torus, which is just a donut. a donut shape. So, my thought, one idea, that I've kind of thought about is like, okay, we got this, the center of the donut. You call that a black hole, and then in the way that all the energy is recycled and reused in the universe is all kind of this kind of shape where everything is vibrating in all matter and energy and all that kind of stuff is kind of going through this pattern of a torus, and it's no different with the expansion of the universe is what are so the part of the universe that we can perceive through some of our technology. And it may be that we're moving on this expanding part of the torus, and maybe eventually we'll kind of start entering this contraction part. So it may look like everything is coming closer together, and energy is speeding up and things like that. So these are some of the things that I think about, but I've got way off topic of actually what I wanted to talk about tonight. But part of what I wanted to talk about, the kind of like the main topic I wanted to cover tonight was some examples of societies that have gone down the tubes, and then some of the successful things that happen in some of these societies, like taking Stefan Verstappen's course on he has a whole course on how to build communities, and he talks in there about different communities that were formed and lived throughout the collapse of different civilizations, and talked about how the monks were around and these different religious enclaves, which they were pretty much autonomous on their own, and were able to operate kind of, where they were in the system, but they were outside the system at the same time, working in their own autonomous ways. And, there were different issues, like with the monks, mainly they were pacifists, and, you'd have wandering guys that would come around and were able to do violence against the monks and take their shit. Let's see. Monasteries. They would come by and take all their stuff because, you got all this stuff that you built, and you guys are operating pretty autonomously, and there's these dudes that come by and they know you have all that stuff, and they just come and raid you and take all the stuff because they know you're pacifists. And that's kind of a lesson in history is pacifism is only inviting aggression, essentially. It's sad that it is that way, but that's just our nature as human beings. Is kind of a, I would say, there is this kind of like a predatory nature of humanity, and kind of a take advantage of the other, and that's why it doesn't pay to be a pacifist. It's that's one thing that throughout history you can see is that people that won't do any type of violence in self-defense, in their own self-defense, they will be taken advantage of. But anyway, these are some folks that were able to kind of weather the storm through some collapses of earlier civilizations and systems, and kind of be able to weather the storm in a way. One of their downfalls was like I said, it was through pacifism. But um, let me pull up this chat that Owen and Curtis Stone had today. There were some really good points in there that these guys were talking about that I think are worth listening to, because kind of relevant to the whole thing that's going on with what happened with Ye recently. Kanye's talking about how a lot of these guys that are in certain circles are Jewish, and they've all kind of been part of giving him problems. They've been giving him a lot of problems. And then he was recently on Tim Pool's podcast and talking about some of this stuff, and he ended up walking out on the podcast. So let's see. Yeah, here we go. Here is the talk with Owen Benjamin here. So anyway, I mean, Owen Benjamin has been kicked off of probably most platforms, and Owen is still going with his daily live streaming and been able to get content out to people. And him and Curtis were having a discussion kind of along the lines of where Kanye is right now. That's kind of where Owen was in the beginning of all this. But, in their talk, they were talking about, okay, well, yes, these guys, a lot of these guys that are in control of the system that we have now, a lot of them claim to be Jewish. But maybe a lot of them Jewish in name only, just to claim, a defense against other people. But yeah, Owen went on to say that, like, okay, these guys are doing stuff, but so what? What now? All right, so what do I do now? And, his whole solution is like, okay, well, I got to build my own stuff. I got to work on myself. I got to get myself in a position instead of being a victim, right? Instead of letting these guys bring the hope out of me and turn me into a victim, that I'm gonna build. And so that's what these guys are talking about, and I think that's a really good message for everyone out there, that the world can kind of beat you down and kind of make you feel like there's this state of hopelessness, but it isn't hopeless. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do and you can build, and that's the overall message of hope and optimism. So let me see if I can play a little bit of this for you guys, and I'm gonna see maybe if I can fast forward it to a little bit of their conversation here. Let me see. Oh, also in this podcast, Curtis Stone gave a potential remedy for chemtrails. And he was talking about how he just was like boiling vinegar outside and noticed that the sky was clearing of these chemtrails. It's like something that he's experimented with, and it looks like there's something there. I wouldn't know how to explain that either, but it's maybe I don't know the mechanism that would be behind that, but I don't know. Might be something to try out and see what works. I think they also, I don't know. it wasn't this talk, but there's other scams kind of going on, and along with the whole Sam Bankman-Fried thing, the whole FTX collapse, and all that kind of stuff. I think you're gonna see more of these collapses in some of these centralized exchanges. In fact, I think I heard of another one going on today that came through my feed on Twitter. But let's get into this. Let's get into Owen and Curtis talking for a little bit here. Let me see if I can find a good spot in here where they were having some of the conversations. Some good conversation here.
Elements of the cult coming through propaganda, obviously Satanism and Luciferianism and all the degeneracy that comes in from the mainstream media in Hollywood. But the cult are a very small group, and they're so compartmentalized in a way that they don't necessarily know if they're working for the big picture and their picture is the big picture, or they're just striving for the one ring to rule them all, right? Everybody's going for the game, the throne, right? And I think there's some big backstabbing that happens in there.
Me too.
But ultimately above them is Lucifer, and Lucifer sells out everybody. It's like that scene in that last Batman movie with the Joker.
Right. I've literally showed
that big heist, right?
Yeah.
And he kills everybody till the end. So everybody helps him along the way. And then they all get fucking whacked at the end, right?
Exactly. And also the man with the most freedom is at the bottom. Because the higher you go, the more they can't make their own decisions. Because
that's right. The higher that's why they call it so the Illuminati is the illuminated, and that's a super broad term. Like people think it's just this small group. No, Illuminati is a very broad cultural scene in the establishment elite apparatus. And in order to be illuminated, you have had to have been raped in the ass from the time you were 3 years old.
Jesus.
The only way to be illuminated is to have been raped in the ass from the time you were 3, because that's how they compartmentalize your brain. The rabbit hole, that stuff's really dark, and I'm sure you've gone down that to some degree, but it's really dark. It's not really that worth riffing on that much.
Well, that's why they like to do so much trauma in TV and film, and I don't think a lot of people realize how fucked up some of the movies they're watching is. It's like
it is.
You're witnessing millions of murders in your life and rapes and gore, and so it really darkens the way you view the world. Where how many murders and rapes do you witness in your life? Like none. If you've been to war or some.
No, exactly. And why is that in every fucking movie?
It's constantly behind every brick is like a rape and a murder, and so
it's an atrocity. Every Disney movie starts out with a murdered parent.
Of a parent,
like it's absolutely because the cult know that trauma is the key to illumination, because the only way to get illuminated is to be so compartmentalized that there's always somebody above you who's got the magic word that can switch on your MK Ultra personality, and then you go into your, what do they call that, monarch state, right? That's all that MK Ultra stuff, and how they get you, like everybody's got a word, right? The guy like Justin Trudeau is such a pawn. He's got a number of ones above him. And even look at Joe Biden. Like, look at these politicians today. The fact that the demonstration of how controlled they are is so painfully obvious that it's shocking that most people can't see it. But
how about
I think a lot of people are seeing it, though.
How about the fact that mass populations have trigger words? Like,
yeah, that's a lot of what they're talking about. We live in a system of trauma-based mind control is really what it comes down to. And yeah, Gabriel, it was like super refreshing. I knew this podcast with Owen and Curtis coming together here. Every time they come together and talk about what's going on, they always like, I'm always on the same vibration, or like I'm vibing with it, man. Because they're really speaking truth to power, and both these guys, they've got their own setup so that they can speak their minds and not worry about having to get canceled by anybody or whatever. So that's a lot of what they're talking about today. Draw so much inspiration from these guys because they're talking about as you wean yourself away from the system, life becomes more hopeful. You start to see this. You start to see these points of optimism. That there is the spiral upward as there is a spiral downward as well. Um, and it's funny they were talking about that too, because that was when I did go to um, Anarchapulco in 2020, and I participated in that DMT ceremony with the 5-MeO DMT. That was like part of my experience with it, was when I let go and kind of let go of my fear, and kind of like just uh, went with the experience. I guess it was like a total dissociation, but being at complete peace, and in this like all like total light. It was like a bright white light, and it was total peace and beautiful feeling. And then on the opposite side, when I started to like maybe freak out, I started to freak out a little bit, because I was kind of feeling like, and this may have been my subconscious kind of trickling back in or something like that through the experience, thinking about all the things that I had researched, and the whole holographic idea of a projection into this universe. And I was almost feeling like I was going to peek beyond the veil into maybe the other form of reality, and that was the true reality and stuff. And that kind of freaked me out. I felt like I'm not ready for that yet, basically. Um, so I freaked out, and on the way, freaking out, it was like a spiral downward is what I saw. Okay, where was the vision? I saw complete blackness, like total darkness, um, and it was like getting sucked down into this darkness. Was when I was freaking out, and so I feel like that may always be like the duality of consciousness and nature, and what we're experiencing is that there's always that opportunity to do the spiral upward, to achieve the highest version of yourself, and to strive for that goal, and where that can put you, as far as like a state of well-being. And then on the opposite side, when you're not working towards that, you're not, what you're doing is not the right way, and you've got your internal dialogue telling you that you're not living up to that, then there's the opposite of you can have the spiral downward. And what these guys are describing is when you look at history and you look at a lot of these totalitarian regimes, the first people that get destroyed are the people that helped bring the totalitarian regime into existence. Those are the people that knew too much, and those are the faithful acolytes, and they always get sacrificed. And it is one of those things that it is it's all voluntary, and Curtis does talk about this a lot, and so does Owen. And he talks about how you're going to be presented with choices, and those choices is how you're going to you're putting yourself into hell, essentially, by making those choices to go along with the system as it's pulling you, like each increment towards this further and further down the spiral of degeneracy. and you have to volunteer for it. You have to go along with it. But if you refuse, there's like this universal law, God's law. Uh, People call it natural law. That in order for these, in order for there to be equity and for even the guys that are doing bad stuff to continue to operate, they still are bound by these rules um, of the natural law. And it really doesn't matter if people believe in it or not. You know, uh, these people at the top, or just, the system. You could even just call it. You could just call it the system, and its orchestration in the orchestration of the system. That these things may be known to some folks, and the further you look into this stuff, the more that this appears. And which brings me to one of the other topics. We're probably going to wrap up with at the end of the podcast. We're going to come back to Owen. We're going to come back to Owen and Curtis. But I did want to go into this one thing that I did learn about earlier in the week, which was this Operation Lefty Grove. This is supposedly the story of when these Navy SEALs go into I think the Osama bin Laden raid, that these special forces guys knew that they were basically going into they were going in to be killed, and it was a setup. So this is also known as Extortion 17. There was a Navy SEAL's dad that revealed this stuff from his son, telling him that he was going to they were being set up. So here's a book written about it. And let me post this in here. Let's see. Let's see, Gabriel. When I am king, you will be first against the wall with your opinion, which is of no consequence at all. Ambition makes you look pretty ugly, kicking, squealing. Gucci little piggy. You don't remember. Why don't you remember my name? Off with his head, man, off with his head. Man, why don't you remember my name? I guess he does. Radiohead, Paranoid Android. First single from OK Computer, Radiohead. Yeah, it's these guys like Stalin, listening to the Gulag Archipelago. Stalin was so paranoid of everyone because he was doing all these atrocities to his own people. He was so paranoid of anybody maybe betraying him, that he had all these informants going out within the society, that anybody that talked ill of Stalin, you got sent to either a gulag or you would just be executed. And so these people and these tyrants, they're paranoid. They're all they know they can't escape God, in my opinion. There's no escaping God and what they've done to others. And always afraid of being stabbed in the back. They've constantly got to look over their shoulders. And, a lot of times that's why, they can't last. They're, the reigns of these people, eventually the human spirit overcomes, I believe. So, but let me tell you a little bit about this. Just here's kind of a synopsis. Before Benghazi, there was Extortion 17, August 6, 2011, 2:20 a.m. Operation Lefty Grove is underway, a highly dangerous mission to take out another high-level Taliban operative. Three months after the death of Osama bin Laden, in the dark of night, 25 U.S. Special Forces and a five-man flight crew on board Extortion 17, a CH-47 Chinook helicopter. So this is why the Special Forces guy knew that he was a marked man. He said he was a marked man, which meant that basically they were going on a mission where they knew they were going to be killed. Is that they used a CH-47 Chinook helicopter? They would typically use other helicopters that would sneak you in real quick and be able to drop you and get out of there real fast. The Chinook helicopter is like a cargo helicopter. It's like it's big, it's slow, it can't it's loud. 7 unidentified Afghan commandos are allowed to join them. Ground forces have already been engaged in a 3-hour exhaustive battle. Extortion 17 specially trained warriors drop into the hot landing zone to help their fellow warriors, but there's a problem. The standard chopper escorts have all been directed elsewhere. Mission directions are unclear. Warriors pre-assault fire to cover the Chinook transporting our brave fighting men is not ordered. On that fateful night, Extortion 17 would never touch down. Taliban fighters fired 3 rocket-propelled grenades in rapid succession. The first RPG shot below the Chinook. The second made contact in what the military would later describe as a 1 in a million shot. A shot struck a rotor blade on the far aft rear pylon, shearing off 10.5 feet of the blade. The third shot flew above the falling chopper. Within a matter of seconds, the chopper begins to spin violently out of control, then drops vertically into a dry creek bed and is engulfed in a large fireball. There are no survivors. So that's kind of a synopsis of what happened with this Operation Lefty Grove, and it was covered in the most recent Grand Theft World podcast. Sorry, it was not the most recent. It was Grand Theft World podcast 107. Titled Digital Gaslighting. And he brought on, Richard brought on a guest to that show who is a filmmaker, and he got into how, he did an interview with the special operations guy's dad, and so let me see if is that part of the interview in this preview. No, probably not. Sorry, that was the preview. Here is the full episode. These are long episodes, but I think if you take the time to listen to the episodes, there's so much stuff, there's so much information packed in here. This was one of the things that I picked up from the episode that I'm gonna do some research into. But anyway, the guy that Richard had on was talking about some of the films that he made, documentary films. Even described in a section there that he got approached by a dude from the CIA, which told him to, kind of, they're gonna put out so much disinformation on the story. That the story's, nobody's ever gonna believe the story that you've told and try to get out there, and that really shook him up. And he was the guy that interviewed the father of the special operations soldier. So let me fast forward it to this part of Grand Theft World where they kind of get into some of this stuff in the interview here. Let's see. This might be it right here, where he's talking to the guy's dad. So let me play it from here, and I think this is the section, but I have to go through and speed it up. But here we go.
Bull Run, which is the NSA program to weaken encrypt systems, not counting putting in backdoors. This is how you weaken a crypt system so you can break it. So, and you don't know.
Okay, that's not it. So that is also interesting because they were talking about how there's backdoors in a lot of software, a lot of encryption, like pretty much like all encryption, I guess, is compromised as far as what these guys were talking about. But that's an issue because now all these things are open to be hacked and everything. So that was an interesting part of the show as well. Let me see if we can get into this whole idea on Extortion 17.
Because
we thought about that one time.
How many times are you going to go interview William Binney? He took, I think it was 3 trains to come see us.
And it was a couple different trains. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he took, I don't know how many hours and maybe, to come see us. And his one word, one sentence, one phrase, you don't want to lose any of it. You want to capture it all because you never know what's going to be next. So you capture it in a way so that it's preserved in the best way.
All right, they're talking a little bit there about William Binney. Let me think right here, probably right about here, 2:09 on the timestamp.
3 eyes in the sky watching. There was a C-1, I think it was a C-150 or 140. It's been a
C-130 is a cargo plane.
Yeah, it was a cargo plane that was Joni. I forget her last name. It's been a while, and there's a reason why I try to wipe this out of my mind, because after I filmed all this, I got met. I went to a bar in Florida because I had to unwind from all the story, telling and whatever. I live in Long Island, but I went to vacation.
All right, so there's a story where intelligence reached out and wanted to give you a little pat on the back and let you know that they're watching.
It was a independent contractor who basically just happened to sit right next to me at a bar when it was just a restaurant bar. But my car was parked 2 blocks away, and I left my cell phone in the car. I don't know how he found me. And I got pretty shooken up, because he knew everything about Lefty Grove, or if you want to call it Lefty Grove, or, Extortion 17. And he basically said, I asked him, I said, how can you sleep at night knowing that we killed our innocent boys, lied to the families? There's plenty of evidence. You need to really read the book or at least investigate Extortion 17, because a lot of people don't even know about it.
So LD, look up Operation Lefty Grove and Extortion 17, and then we'll bring those up on screen for John.
Sure. So I was very shooken up from it, but not really, because I was just like, so basically what he told me was, your story's not going to go anywhere. There's so much red tape. There's so much disinformation on the internet that will stifle the truth, and nobody will know the truth from the real story. From the fake stories.
So basically, he's like, "What you thinking for? What you trying for?"
Well, basically, what he told me was, And this is the way they do it. They put static into everything, so you don't know what's real and what's not.
All right, so
that's the most important thing with anything that's going on today, is the fact that they interject fake stories with real stories. They're telling partial truths, and they're leading down.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, just as I was describing there, this guy was like, yeah, we're going to basically put out all this disinformation out there so that nobody would be able to figure out what's real and what's not. And kind of ran into an incident with a spook there.
People to disbelieve any real truth because some of the truth is fake. And they're like, well, then the whole story must be fake.
All right. Good explanation. I've got Extortion 17 up here in the history blueprint. Has to do with the death of bin Laden, SEAL Team 6, and a couple of things over here that might be illicit.
Extortion 17 was the rescue mission for the Lone Survivor crew. That movie was based on that story.
The movie with Marky Mark that covers up the real history, and they whitewash it just like Narcos Mexico. It's called Lone Survivor. Lone Survivor.
Now, I have not released that video of Charlie Strange because one of the directors was
okay. So that's
working.
All right.
Go ahead.
Michael Strange was the SEAL who got killed in the whatever happened in that Chinook.
Right.
And Charlie Strange is Michael's dad, who now speaks out on behalf of the families who were lied to. Go ahead and fill it in.
Yeah. So Michael Strange's father, Charlie Strange, was extremely upset. I still talk with him every once in a while. I'll call him like every week or whatever, every month. And it's like it just happened yesterday. You know, this happened in, if you look at the date on that, 2011. But it's like it happened just yesterday for this man and his family. He has other kids, but Michael was really very close to him. But I don't even know. Oh, okay. So another director picked up the story, and he was from Canada. And he said, he had the funding. He had some $500,000. I had no funding. We were trying to see if we can make this into a movie with a director called Don Sikorsky. And it wound up that Charlie Strange just, had no faith in Don Sikorsky. He wasn't doing anything with it. So he found another director from Canada. And that Canadian director started to film here in America. Well, all of a sudden, he just becomes, gets put on the terrorist list. And he's no longer allowed to come to America anymore. So he told me, he said, listen, if you want to finish the story, you can. I'll fund you the money, whatever. And I basically really just, there's so much in that story. There's so much that it's a very hot subject. So,
let me ask you.
That's kind of why out of respect for Charlie Strange, I didn't release any of the videos. It's very touching. It's very heart-filled, and it should make people, anybody who knows about the story, they could read about it, but it'll make you angry if you know.
Yeah, there's Washington Times articles. If people just search Operation Lefty Grove, first off, Lefty Grove was a left-handed pitcher in baseball 100 years ago or whatever. Operation Lefty Grove is something more recent that's documented, and it's talked about in media, but they don't really talk about because they're going under the official guise of it was an RPG and nothing to see here type thing, right?
Well, that would be true if the eyes in the sky weren't turned off.
Right, exactly. It's like when Epstein's campers are turned off, bro.
And
we get it. Yeah.
Charlie Strange's body had bullet holes in it.
Michael Strange's
body had bullet holes in it. At the autopsies that were given, there were photographs of his dead body. They told the parents that all the bodies got burned beyond recognition. So,
so the official story is Chinook gets shot down by enemy RPG. All the bodies are burned beyond recognition. The parents are given, here's the information, but it's all redacted. It's all worded out. It's all deleted.
Michael Strange worked for the NSA. He was a cryptologist. He had friends in the NSA who sent Charlie Strange autopsy photos of his body, not burned, but with bullet holes in it. And when they did the investigation on the Chinook helicopter, they gathered up all those bullets, and and they said that they were pop-off rounds, which were basically rounds in the gun that went off from the fire, which is total BS. Everybody knows that you can't have shells. These guys were in a gun battle, and they didn't say that. Now, Joni was in a C-150 up in the air. She watched their bodies turn from red to blue, which means, alive to dead. So, and she was told not to do anything, to stand down, not to land, or not to send anybody down by parachute. So there's so much.
So it's like the 13 hours in Libya, Libya was the SEAL team under attack with Clinton Benghazi. Everyone else was told to stand down. Eyes in the sky were turned off. Same sort of situation. It sounds like the people who were doing stuff were doing stuff.
Well, nobody really understands the whole thing, and all I can tell you is when he came home right after the Bin Laden raid, he told his dad, we're all marked, we're all dead, and he said nothing. Basically, what he said was nothing that we've been told is true. Like, our government's been lying to us. And he used to take a lie detector test every 2 months to see if he was telling any secrets, because he had top secret clearance. He was a cryptologist as well. But after all that extortion 17, it's still a very touchy subject to me, because I got close with Charlie Strange. I went out to do something a little bit safer, which was DEA, CIA, FBI corruption with the drug cartels.
Right.
And that's a lot safer than dealing with the military.
We got to play it safe, with whistleblowers, with
that was the next project that I did with because I earned the reputation of being honest and open, and that we weren't going to cover stuff up. That was the Winning Binny thing. We disclosed everything. We didn't hide anything. And the same thing with Charlie Strange. Charlie Strange had, he basically said, this is a real, genuine photographer who wants to film and document what's going on. Whether or not it got released, some of it got released, some of it got a lot of publicity, but so much heat came down the pipe that we just but the reputation was there that we were real, we were not going to cover stuff up. It wasn't me covering it up. It was just that there were so many obstacles in the way. But anyway, so Hector came into the picture with Don Sikorsky, this other producer, and we filmed him. I filmed him in New York City for the first time, and I was blown away. But Don Sikorsky was doing the first interview, and I was just like, wow, this is not how I would do the interview. Like, I'm very thorough. I'm not as thorough as you are, but
and then you called me after one of those days of production, and you're like, dude, I'm here, and there's this great whistleblower, and the guy who's producing it's blowing it. He's like, I just wish I could do. I'm like, well, let's do it. And then
so we did this little interview, and then for almost a year and a half, he and I spoke by phone, and I taped, recorded every single conversation, almost every single day, because the story was so fascinating. I mean, him about, recruiting all these double agents, something called, what was it? Operation Twofold, and Operation Padrino, which was the, now this is an interesting connection that I made. Operation Padrino, during the Hector Brea's story, there was something that Kiki, basically the cartels didn't know how the money was getting siphoned out of their accounts. They were upset, and so was the CIA.
Okay, so let's cover that real quick, because Whitney Webb and other people, she mentions, but the way I want to say it is like this. Hector said last week, a lot of people, they think Kiki was killed because of Rancho Buffalo getting busted.
Yeah.
They took down a bunch of marijuana, so they got to kill a DEA agent. Come on, man, that doesn't even make any sense. But if those ranches, the other ranch was being used by CIA, which we know from 10 different ways that CIA had ranches doing this stuff, that's a reason to kill the DEA agent, and they have the power to cover it up.
That's why Max Gomez or Felix Rodriguez was flown in, because he was a CIA's asset.
Right. Now, John's going to tell you that Kiki discovered how they're laundering the money, like BCCI style. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. What happened was Hector was part of a group called that were part of Operation Padrino. And that was like 5 or 6 guys that knew that there was wiretapping going on. Now, the NSA didn't, the NSA was working cooperatively with the DEA without the CIA oversight. there were embedded agents in the DEA from the CIA that were double agents. Like Hector said, they just show up with badges. They had no training. They just all of a sudden just get injected.
So it's almost as if some good guys, it's almost as if some good guys at NSA and DEA are like, hey, you know what? As long as the CIA's in the room, we're not getting anything done. So let's do something on the side that they don't know about. Kiki's at the bottom of that, giving them intel. Well, when CIA does find out about that party, they got to shut it down. And well, go ahead.
Kiki had no intel. He just made one suggestion. Kiki made one suggestion. We keep going after the now Hector's older and he forgets a lot of stuff, but I had those tape recordings that we made and I remember everything.
You gotta follow the money.
Right. So like when we did the second interview in Manhattan, I'm like, Hector, wait a second. On the phone a year ago, you told me this. And he's like, oh yeah, that's right. So yeah, but I captured it fresh in his mind. And he's been, so sometimes he'll forget stuff to say. Like he forgot to mention what happened, what really happened during your interview, but he knows it. He knows it. He's not,
well,
but
I mean,
he mentioned it sort of. Yeah, good.
I was trying to get him to put on the record that the reason so much is known about Kiki's death is because it was tape recorded by CIA.
Yes,
the tape recordings got transcribed.
But what happened was,
and those transcriptions ended up in his hands during the investigation.
Yes,
he's like, "Holy shit, dude!"
Yeah.
So,
But we'll get to that. But Kiki just in the beginning, he suggested we keep going after their money.
Right.
I mean, we keep going after the drugs, and that doesn't make any difference. They just keep making more drugs. We seize millions of dollars worth of drugs. They don't care. We need to hit them where it hurts, in their pocketbooks. And if you watch, I did send you a clip of a bunch of different interviews that Hector and I did by phone. And your audience is definitely welcome to watch it. It's all in order. It's
all right.
it's
So LD,
great...
show that on screen, and then we'll put it in the show notes so everyone can just go through this playlist. Is this like a Rogue Narc playlist or something? What do you
that's the Rogue Narc. So basically, right. So that's the whole playlist right there. I just re-uploaded it because there was a lawsuit with Amazon and not with, there was one of the crooked DEA agents that was trying to sue Hector, sue me, and sue the Sicarios that I interviewed with Hector, and then they interviewed for the movie on Amazon. So
all right, I gotta go look this up right now. So Betrayed Within Rogue Narc. So I've been all right. Yeah, remind me later. I've been following along these Grand Theft World podcast episodes, and what they're talking about right now is Kiki Camarena was a guy that was involved in the I believe it was the Iran-Contra thing where they were shipping arms in exchange for drugs, and he was an agent that was tasked on, I believe he was a DEA agent that was investigating all the drug trafficking that was happening. And so he ends up getting assassinated, and it was because he stumbled on to this what these guys were up to, and that's what this whole series of what these guys are talking about is going on there. So yeah, I guess it's not here, but where he just showed that. Was that on a specific channel? Let me see.
That I made, Operation Padrino, during the Hector Breas story, there was something that Kiki, basically the cartels didn't know how the money was getting siphoned out of their accounts. They were upset, and so was the CIA.
Okay, so let's cover that real quick, because Whitney Webb and other people, not she mentions, but the way I want to say it is like this. Hector said last week, a lot of people, they think Kiki was killed because of Rancho Buffalo getting busted.
Yeah.
Buffalo,
They took down a bunch of marijuana, so they got to kill a DEA agent. Come on, man,
Right.
that doesn't even make any sense. But if those ranches, the other ranch was being used by CIA, which we know from 10 different ways that CIA had ranches doing this stuff,
Right.
that's a reason to kill the DEA
Yeah,
agent, and they have the power to cover it up.
That's why
Well,
Max
not
Gomez
just-
or Felix Rodriguez was flown
There's
in because
an
he
element
was a
there that-
CIA's asset.
Right, and now John's
Yeah.
going to tell you that Kiki discovered how they're laundering the money, like BCCI style. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. What happened was Hector was part of a group called that were part of Operation Padrino, and that was like 5 or 6 guys that knew that there was wiretapping going on. Now the NSA didn't. The NSA was working cooperatively with the DEA without the CIA oversight. There were embedded agents in the DEA from the CIA that were double agents. Like Hector said, they just show up with badges. They had no training. They just all of a sudden just get injected.
So
We're
it's
not gonna
almost
put
as if
any-
some good guys, it's almost as if some good guys at NSA and DEA are like, hey, you know what? As long as the CIA's in the room, we're not getting anything done. So let's do something on the side that they don't know about. Kiki's at the bottom of that, giving them intel. Well, when CIA does find out about that party, they got to shut it down. And well, go ahead.
Kiki had no intel. He just made
Okay.
one suggestion. Kiki made one suggestion. We keep going after the now Hector's older and he forgets a lot of stuff, but I have those tape recordings that we made and I remember everything.
Got to follow the money.
Right. So like when we did the second interview in Manhattan, I'm like, Hector, wait a second. On the phone a year ago, you told me this. And he's like, oh yeah, that's right. So yeah, but I captured it fresh in his mind. And he's been, so sometimes he'll forget stuff to say. Like he forgot to mention what happened, what really happened during your interview, but he knows it. He's not,
Well,
but
I mean,
He
What
mentioned it
happened was-
sort of. Yeah, good.
I was trying to get him to put on the record that the reason so much is known about Kiki's death is because it was tape recorded by CIA. And
Yes,
those tape
yeah,
recordings, the tape
but-
recordings got
but
transcribed.
what happened was
and
during
those
the Buffalo
transcriptions
raid-
ended up in his hands during the investigation.
Yes,
He's
yes.
like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But we'll get to that. But
Yeah.
Kiki just in the beginning, he suggested we keep going after their money.
Right.
I mean, we keep going after the drugs, and it doesn't make any difference. They just keep making more drugs. We seize millions of dollars worth of drugs. They don't care. We need to hit them where it hurts, in their pocketbooks. And if you watch, I did send you a clip of a bunch of different interviews that Hector and I did by phone, and your audience is definitely welcome to watch it. It's all in order. It's
All right,
it's
so
a
LD,
great-
show that on screen, and then we'll put it in the show notes so everyone can just go through this playlist. Is this like a Rogue Narc playlist or something? What do you
Yeah, that's the Rogue Narc. So
right.
basically,
All right. Trying to figure out something. Good, please, Productions or something like that. Please, Productions. I find this really interesting because it kind of ties into a lot of. I mean, it ties into a ton of stuff with like the Clintons and a lot of this stuff that's going on. And it's just one of those stories where you nail some parts of the picture down basically, and this is these guys went and did the work to go check this out or make this content and kind of preserve this part of his history here. Let's see. Damn, dude. All right. Looks like I'm going to have to go into their show notes from the Grand Theft World website. Show notes, replay, downloads here. and I need to find that. I want to find that specific YouTube from this one. I want to share it with you guys. So let me see if I can find this for you guys. Trade within Rogue Narc. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. All right. I'll see. All right, here you go, my friends. There's that playlist. I am going to make sure that it's good Pixel Productions.
All of us agree that the gravest
Good
domestic
Pixel
threat facing our nation
Productions.
today is drugs. Who's
And let's see, that was that playlist there. Trade within Rogue Narc. Yeah, so this was already, I'm guessing this was taken down at one point. And so it might be a good idea to maybe go through this and while I'm on here on the podcast, that I play some of this for you guys, and I can kind of get this on a recording. So I'm gonna go ahead and play some of these videos with you guys.
The murder of DEA agent Kiki Camarena made worldwide headlines after he was kidnapped by a Mexican drug cartel.
Enrique Kiki Camarena.
Enrique Kiki Camarena.
DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena. Special agent Enrique Camarena, known to his friends as Kiki.
The director himself, Jack Long, asked me to run the Kiki Camarena murder case.
The details of the torture he faced, unimaginable.
Is we need to find out who killed Kiki, how they tortured him, who ordered it.
After leading a series of drug busts, Mexico's intelligence agency, the DFS, kidnapped him outside the consulate in Guadalajara.
Because up to this point, at this juncture, we don't know that. We don't have any eyewitnesses. So please get out there and recruit eyewitnesses.
Special Agent Camarena was kidnapped by the traffickers. He was tortured and beaten to death.
It's the largest investigation of the DEA, hands down. It was so big because it was the death of a DEA agent. We had to recruit witnesses in Mexico, and a lot of the witnesses that I recruited ended up dead. There were so many people involved, the Mexican government officials.
They did not understand the corruption and the culture of the Mexican people.
I supervised 3 trials. Every trial lasted more than 3 months, and every one of those trials had over 100 witnesses.
Sources in the Mexican Army, in the Mexican Federal Police. I need to recruit sources even in Los Pinos, which is Mexico's White House. I think I had better information than the CIA at the time as to what was occurring in Mexico. I knew what generals were being paid off with the drug lords, and even the amounts of money they were receiving, and how the money was flowing into cabinet-level corrupt Mexican government officials.
Before being kidnapped, Kiki was extremely close to unlocking a multi-billion-dollar drug pipeline.
At the time, I didn't realize that case was going to destroy my career, destroy my family, and also get me killed.
Yeah, so I guess part of this was pitched to Netflix, I believe, but then they wanted like a lot of the they wanted to maybe change it up a little bit or something, not get the full story out there. He goes on to explain some of that later on in the podcast, in the Grand Theft World podcast. But yeah, go check out this playlist, man. And this whole Rogue Narc series, like, sounds like Kiki Camarena. He stumbled in upon what the CIA was doing just by following their money trail and messing up their money, so to speak. And once he did that, then he was persona non grata. JJ Chang, what's up? El Gecko, what's up, man? Good to see you. Yeah, kind of going down the rabbit hole in this one. Listen to recent episode of the Grand Theft World podcast, and he talked about two things in there. One was this Extortion 17, and this was about some of the guys that were, I think maybe they were involved with the Bin Laden raid, and like the guys that had some involvement with that ended up doing this rescue operation and basically knew that it was a suicide mission, that they were being set up to be killed. And so that whole thing was like the whole thing was called Operation Lefty Grove. And this is a book written about the subject. I don't know if this is like the authoritative book, but this is one of the books about the whole situation. And so let's see, this is about Extortion 17. And I guess that's the only book that really comes up about it. Let me see. Yeah, Betrayed. The shocking true story of Extortion 17, as told by a Navy SEAL's father. So this was the book to go. This is the book to go check out, I guess, if you want to learn more about what happened there. And yeah, in the Grand Theft World podcast, the guy, the gentleman being interviewed here, is his name John Massaria. His name's John Massaria, and he was like kind of like a documentary. He's a documentary filmmaker, and he's I guess worked with Richard Grove in the past. I think he did some filming to interview William Binney, which I believe he was a whistleblower, government whistleblower. Let's see. Binney. I think that's how you spell his name. Yep. So, former intelligence officer, official with the United States NSA, whistleblower. Oh yeah, he was this original guy that was in the film or in the podcast originally, where he was talking about how all the encryption has been tampered with, and so there's backdoors to all the encryption. Basically, was the whole thing with William Binney, and he's a former NSA guy, and became a whistleblower. So yeah, John Massaria, he's got he dug into some pretty interesting stuff, and it was the story of Extortion 17 that got him in trouble with the CIA. Some guy some CIA agent just came around and found him and had a sit-down discussion with him, apparently. And it was so shocking to him that this guy was able to, this guy went and found him and kind of had a little discussion with him. So anyway, he moved on to filming other stuff like this rogue narc and Hector Barea here, who was investigating the death of Kiki Camarena, which is tied into that whole situation with the I guess Netflix made the series like Narcos, talking about Escobar and all that kind of stuff, Pablo Escobar and the cocaine trafficking into the United States and all that kind of stuff, which is tied into this whole weapons sending weapons down to South America that was going on. So man, wild stuff when you start connecting the dots on all this stuff. So let's listen to a little bit more of this going into episode 2, explaining what Operation Padrino is. And then we've got about 20 minutes left in the podcast tonight. I wanted to wrap up, kind of on a lighter note and going back to what Owen and Curtis are talking about. And maybe we're going to zoom ahead to the end of their discussion where they're talking about the 8 forms of capital. But let's get more into this rogue narc.
After the Buffalo marijuana field seizures, which was the biggest marijuana seizure in the history of the DEA, we seized over 10,000 tons of marijuana. Okay, after that, we learned, or Kiki Camarena felt, that seizing drugs was not hurting the drug dealer, that they would just replace the drugs immediately after we seized them. So Kiki came out with the idea that we should hit it where it really hurts. It's in the pocketbook. He said, let's initiate an operation targeting all their assets and mainly trying to find where they are hiding all their money and go after their money more so than the drugs.
See, they just showed and mentioned the whole BCCI thing, Bank of Credit and Commerce International, I believe is what it is. Let's see, Bank of Credit and Commerce International, which is basically just a big money laundering. Was a big money laundering operation. So worldwide operations, Abu Dhabi's Bank of Credit and Commerce International, BCCI, partly owned by the ruling family, closed down after corrupt practices were uncovered, and the Emirates subsequently created the Abu Dhabi Free Zone Authority, developed a new financial center. All right. That's from Britannica online, I guess. And let's see, what is this? I guess this is the Wikipedia page. Bank of Credit and Commerce International, the international bank founded in 1972. Agha Hassan Abidi, a Pakistani financier. Bank was registered in Luxembourg with head offices in Karachi. It was the most populous city in Pakistan. So had head offices in Luxembourg in Pakistan. So Luxembourg, landlocked country in Western Europe and borders Belgium, west and north. And in London is where they had another branch of the bank. And yeah, basically it was like the CIA's money laundering bank, where they moved a lot of their money through BCCI. So here we go.
Because of his suggestion, the DEA then initiated Operation Padrino. Operation Padrino was a massive wiretapping operation involving the U.S., Peru, Colombia, Mexico, and Spain. So that through those means, we uncovered how they were moving their money and where these major drug lords had banks they had their money in. So we started hitting them really, really hard. Okay. In California, we made a seizure in a hotel room of $11.4 million. In Houston, we seized, because of that operation, $35 million in a jet, and so on and so forth. And we started really kicking their butts and hitting them where it really hurt them, which was in the pocketbook. However, we didn't know at the time that the CIA was working with these drug lords, protecting them, because the drug lords were providing millions and millions of dollars towards funding the illegal war in Nicaragua. So therefore, they became very upset, and they, meaning the drug lords and the CIA, because they weren't getting all this money they were used to getting, through the sale of drugs. So they themselves started an investigation to try to find out, how it was that we were uncovering where they had their how they were moving their money and where they had their money hidden. Little did we know that, like I said, that the CIA was funding this war through drug monies. Henceforth, the CIA, meaning the point guard for the CIA, Felix Rodriguez, and the drug lords, start their own investigation to try to uncover how it was that we knew how they were moving the money and where they had their money hidden. And they find out that Camarena came up with the idea of hitting him where it hurts, which was in the pocketbook. They have Camarena picked up. Camarena is brought in, he's interrogated, and he's asked about what he knows about the CIA funding the Congo War, with drug monies and how all these Mexican.
Yeah, man. So yeah, this is the whole Iran-Contra thing, and Camarena got to so close on. Well, he was busting up all this, all this money flowing into, this money coming from the drug lords, to run these operations that the CIA was involved in. So he got a little too close, and he didn't even uncover it, but I guess he just made this suggestion to go after the money, these guys' money, and then that interfered with their operations, and they couldn't have that.
Government officials were being greased by the drug lords. He couldn't provide him with any answers, because the wiretapping operation that we initiated out of Washington, D.C. was a very secretive wiretapping operation that was being run through DEA's SOT program, which is Special Operations Division program up in Washington. I had privy to that information when I became, in charge of Kiki's murder later. So I knew we had it. That drug lords thought that Kiki had infiltrated informants, human sources, to basically identify how they were moving the money, and that's what they were trying to get out of Kiki when they were torturing him. They wanted him to give up his human sources of information, which he didn't have. Kiki didn't know himself that we had started this secret, massive wiretapping operation out of DC to support Operation Padrino, which he suggested be implemented. Okay, the seizure of their assets. That's basically what was going on. We didn't know that at the time that a lot of that so-called DEA people they were brought into the DEA were CIA double agents, and these double agents were brought into the DEA to spy on our operations. And a lot of them, they showed up at offices in foreign countries. I had a couple working underneath me that I didn't even know were CIA guys.
Pretty crazy, huh? Like truth is stranger than fiction for sure, man. Definitely one of those things that that you can go around and share, because it's it is part of history, and it's definitely history that is there, that is definitely being suppressed, and people really don't want people knowing about all this kind of stuff, and I think it's only a matter of time until a lot more of this stuff becomes more widely known, and it just comes down to people sharing this kind of stuff, and getting more people to know about it. So we got about 9 minutes left on the podcast tonight, and I wanted to wrap everything up with some of this talk again with the with Owen and Curtis Stone kind of riffing together about what's going on, and Curtis has this thing about the 8 forms of capital, which I think are good things to remember when it comes to the world, everything that's going on. It's not just money that makes up different. It's not just physical forms of money. These 8 forms of capital is all about the connections that you're making, communities, and stuff like that. That these things are more important than just money. So let me play this, see if I can find that section, and I'll play that for you.
Have a sort of a feudalist system of fiefdoms where there's people who have resources, like say guys like you and I have the ability to make some things happen that others couldn't. And
being in love with someone, or just sit next to him on a
to the next thing, like COVID was one big step. Only the people in the inner devoted call stop every detractor, filter or net gets down to the bottom. The desire to these animals, like everything we've got. I'm no longer the guy in the front, like the gravy. And the one thing, the next one that I understood that was very liberating for me, because I came from nothing. My parents had nothing but debt. When my dad died, I got fucking nothing. Not that I expected. I didn't want anything, But I came from nothing. I had to build another form of capital that leveraged all the other ones. Now is social capital, at least in my journey. People can go this in different ways, but social capital is you and the gravy. And the one thing, the next one, the 8 forms of capital.
This is huge, guys, because you might be looking at your bank account and see $500, and you're like, man, I wish I had capital like Owen and Curtis.
Let's some good gravy. Let's get into that.
This is great gravy.
It is great gravy. So what is capital? Capital is essentially, at its purest form, is the store of a resource in some way or another. And so that can go all kinds of different ways. The way we most commonly notice it as is financial capital. The Grappler wants you to think there's only financial capital, right? Because then he controls finance.
Exactly.
But so financial capital is Bitcoin, gold, money, anything. Yeah. Any financial asset is a capital resource of finance. Where you start to get into gravy, and the one thing, the next one that I understood that was very liberating for me, because I came from nothing. My parents had nothing but debt. When my dad died, I got fucking nothing. Not that I expected. I didn't want anything, But I came from nothing. I had to build another form of capital that leveraged all the other ones. Now is social capital, at least in my journey. People can go this in different ways, but social capital is you and me, and with all the bears, we've built a capital of trust. And Beartaria is a perfect example of that, in that if somebody knows you're another bear, immediately, boom, you're at this level of trust that is miles high above just meeting a stranger on the street, right? That's social capital, social equity, friendships, just goodwill. Like for me, when I started to leverage that, sky was the limits, because I understood that I could exponentially create wealth without actually having any fucking money. I could just put goodwill out there,
just being a
and
good
help
guy.
people, and like, this shit comes back, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So social capital, that's another one. Like individual capital, this one's also known as like human capital, but it's like the stock of skills. So bunch of bears who know how to do forestry work and farming and raising animals, there's a lot of human capital in there, and that knowledge and experience that's a tangible resource, because people who have good skills can do things for you, right?
Exactly.
So that's like human capital, individual capital. Then you've got like intellectual capital, which is your knowledge, right? What do you know as an individual for yourself? What do you know? Your resourcefulness, your creativity, like your ability to innovate and things like that. That's intellectual capital. And then we have cultural capital. So cultural capital even exists in Beartaria, in that all your community and all that, and it's the same in my community, like we're all bears, right? It's like the cultural of the traditions and customs that we have. And that's why, like, say, Mao Zedong wanted to have the Cultural Revolution and just wipe out history. It's like they wiped out generations of cultural capital, right? And that has a lot of fucking value, because culture is what brings people together, right? We come together for cultural experiences and share certain days to celebrate something or whatever, right? So super valuable. What do we have next? Political capital. So, which is really a stock of, people could say it's politics, but it's not necessarily politics as in it's government, but it's a stock of goodwill and influence and like organizations, and we can rebuild, like you said earlier, we can rebuild institutions. It's like, that's political capital, right? We can build those things. We can have them be whatever they want. Just because it has the word politics doesn't mean it has to be associated with Dems and fucking Republicans, right? We can have natural capital or biological capital. That's one of my favorites, in that, like on my homestead, I put a massive amount of biological capital in this year by building my soil and planting trees and putting in water harvesting, retention, or flood or drainage or whatever. That is natural capital, right? Because those things are going to exist long after I'm gone. I plant a tree today. By the time I die, that tree, my kids will have a swing on it, and they'll be swinging their grandkids on it. That's a natural or biological capital. And then we have like built or accumulated capital, like infrastructure. You build a road on your property. That is, a resource capital. I call that too. It's a thing that's there. You build a house. That's a built resource. Resource capital. Or even like you have a stock of wood. You got a stock of firewood or something like that. So that's basically the 8 forms of capital. And and the thing is that's empowering about this information is the rich. The real rich that are the aristocratic elite, they all know this shit. And that's actually partly how they don't pay taxes, is by leveraging that stuff, because you can move one form of capital into another. They convert, right? Because you can build social capital, and then that capital will turn into financial capital, because through your influence and your goodwill, people want to buy your products, right? That just like with me, I sell stuff because I know it's good stuff, and I sell stuff that I believe in, and I've front loaded with my social equity and my willingness to share and share in abundance, and that comes back in a form of financial capital, as well as other forms of resources, right? People send you like real super chats. They send you shit in your PO.
I just got a piece of silver.
Right? Totally. So yeah, that's the 8 forms, and it's like you figure that stuff out, and it's it's really
it's a gravy train.
Really
yeah, because it
empowering.
empowers people. I saw someone in the chat go, yeah, but you can only pay your bills with financial capital. That's how they want you to think, because that's not true. You know, you can.
Well, no, it's not true. It's not true. You can't only pay your. I mean,
no, like you can have no financial capital and be the richest person you know if you have like.
All right, guys. You know, I think that's really cool. Really cool discussion there. You know, it really is one of those things where it's like what you put out is what comes back, and what can come back to you. So, you know, I do believe that myself, and just, you know, going out there and finding some kind of problem that you can solve and provide value for others, you know, that will come back to you tenfold. But appreciate you guys coming to hang out tonight. Gabriel, El Gecko, for hanging out in the Discord chat there and learning along with me on some of these things. And yeah, stay optimistic and have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks for hanging out for the Meadows and Makers podcast. Go find the Odyssey channel and go follow me there, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode. So we'll catch you later. Peace.
Okay.